Examples of drug treatment based on protein kinase regulation are already in use. Discovering a drug called imatinib that inhibits protein kinases was a significant breakthrough in the treatment of leukemia. The chronic myelogenous leukemia often targets carriers of the Philadelphia chromosome.
Because of the effectiveness of this treatment, the number of Ph-positive leukemias will probably increase in the future because patients don't die.
But the invention of imatinib did not end the work of the protein kinase research group at the University of Milano-Bicocca. Soon it was discovered that the drug does not work in all patients with chronic myelogenous leukemia. New drugs are being developed. The Milan unit is exceptional because it is affiliated with the San Bernardino Hospital, where they can do pre-clinical testing and also treat patients, the so-called translational trials.
The young male is affected by CML, or chronic myeloid leukemia, and he developed a mutant form of BCR-ABL that is resistant to imatinib. So he came here and we started him on another molecule that we have in fact developed in large part here in the lab, and he responded very well. His bone marrow is now normal. He is in what is considered a complete cytogenetic response. The lady on the wheelchair instead is a patient affected by a Ph-positive acute lymphoblastic leukemia. These patients, however, are much more difficult to treat, and in fact this patient was initially treated with imatinib. Her cells harbor a mutation that's called the 315I, which renders cells resistant to all the inhibitors available up to now. So if you want, this patient is the example of what we have not yet achieved.
The final research entity of the consortium tests the development compounds in different diseases. A key disease is once again cancer. One of these units is in England at the Birmingham Medical School.
Protein kinase C have a diverse role in a number of cellular functions, including cell death, cell differentiation and proliferation. So that, for example, in cancers, if you could target this particular isoform of PKC with a compound, you could theoretically induce cell death in these cancer cell lines. So that's our main interest, really.
I guess the major challenge is finding a compound that will be selective enough towards the disease cells that you're targeting or the disease process and actually won't affect normal physiology too much. It's always that balance.
When the research of a promising compound and protein kinase has advanced far enough, the pharmaceutical industry enters the equation.
Based on the patent, go on the road to see who is interested to pursue further this research, because other financial needs come in place when you go for finalizing preclinicals and, of course, going clinical trials.
Imatinib is an example of a long-term, extensive international development. The Philadelphia chromosome mutation, which causes permanent activation of a key protein kinase, was found in the 1980s. However, the discovery was not patented and research could be done all over the world. This helped significantly in finding a solution.
If the same gene would be discovered today, it would probably be patented right away, and therefore, on a community let's say point of view, would probably render the development of specific inhibitors more problematic.
In order for the pharmaceutical industry to finance the development of a drug, it has to be convinced the markets are wide enough. If they don't deem the discovery commercially feasible, they may drop the project, with crucial consequences. Luckily, Novartis eventually discovered the potential of imatinib.
Imatinib itself was initially developed almost by coincidence or as a leftover from other projects that had a much more, let's say, important size for companies.
The relationship between health and money is not always without problems. In basic research, projects can receive funding even though they are not of interest to the industry right now, especially if the research yields new information that can lead to a breakthrough, such as imatinib, in the future. An example of such research is the study of Leishmania protein kinases. Leishmania is a disease caused by protozoa. It spreads like malaria, and around 15 million people are suffering from it in the developing countries. Every year, about 60,000 people die from it. The Israel unit of the consortium studies compounds that would attack Leishmania. By inhibiting a certain protein kinase in Leishmania, the spreading can be stopped and the infection cured. The Protein Kinase Consortium receives funding from the EU. It is a pioneer both in its scope and interdisciplinary approach.
Compared to national funding, it's actually much more willing to take a risk. And it also tends to put money towards large collaborative groupings like prokinase research, where you can get people in different specialities working together for really a very ambitious project that really one nation by itself just wouldn't be able to fund.
Even though the aim of the Protein Kinase Consortium is not to produce new drugs for clinical use, their research helps in finding new kinase inhibitors and promotes the basic research of protein kinases.
If you stop basic research, you will stop commercialization pretty soon after. So it's like cutting the tree. If you cut the roots, the tree will look green for a little while, but it will soon dry out.
However, the question the common man always asks is when? When is the drug available?
It's hard to put a figure on these things. I think you hesitate to raise expectations, although of course we all work with those expectations, otherwise it wouldn't work.